and trying to navigate the Zoom plus look at the agenda plus take notes plus keep all of you in mind for questions might be a challenge, but I'm sure we'll get through. So going straight away to the agenda.
I'll move.
Thank you. Are there any apologies before we move the agenda? Any apologies? I know Kesh has the small children, so she will be in and out of the meeting. So we'll put those as apologies. Is there anyone else? No. Move that those apologies be accepted. Councillor Leary, Councillor Wilson, thank you very much. Any confirmation of the agenda is moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor O'Leary, just because I'm looking at you on the screen at the moment. All in favour?
Aye.
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 Paula?
Yes.
Councillor, sorry, Mayor Southgate, we just need to note that for the confirmation of the agenda, there's a late item that's been added to the agenda that's just been circulated recently in relation to a contract for professional services panel. It's been added to the late agenda, so it's been added late to the agenda as it's needed to be dealt with as a result of COVID-19 state of emergency. So
Okay,
we'll put that on the last item of the agenda.
Okay, so with that late agenda accepted, it's been moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Leary. All in favour?
Aye.
Okay, now are there any declarations of interest? No. There's no public forum that I'm aware of. It would be difficult right now.
So there is, just to interrupt again, there is a written submission that has come in recently that Amy will circulate very shortly to elected members in relation to the hardship item. We will attach that as part of the minutes as well. So if any public are watching, that submission will be available as part of the minutes following the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Right, so now we're up to the next item, which is the decision making. We had a meeting only 2 days ago to extend the delegations to Chief Executive Richard Briggs. And now, of course, those changes that we thought the government were going to make have been made. So Mofla's just going to speak us through a few implications of that. Of course, now that we've met, his extended delegation cease. But there might be some things we'd like to consider as set out in your report, and I'll ask Mofla to talk about it, please.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. As just mentioned, of course, the extended CE delegations that were put in place on Wednesday have now been revoked, but what we're recommending is that even though you're now able to meet remotely and meet those quorum requirements, we're recommending putting in place a backup mechanism so that just in case, in the rare circumstances where we can't get a quorum of 7 meeting even remotely due to illness, that the chief executive, the extended delegations that you gave to the chief executive on Wednesday are automatically reactivated and will be in place until council is able to meet again with a full quorum. So what we're proposing in the report is a mechanism by which if a council meeting is called and 48 hours before the meeting it's clear that quorum can't be met, then the chief executive's delegations are extended automatically and will be exercised in exactly the same way as the extended delegations you approved on Wednesday. So that same protocol would be in place. Once council was then able to meet with a full quorum, then those delegations would be automatically revoked. And this could happen a number of times if necessary until council decided to resolve to put an end to the extended CE delegations. And that would likely be recommended at the point where things are back to normal, whenever that may be. So in the report, we step through what that would look like, and we've provided an example at paragraph 10 that shows how this might work, and it illustrates that the delegations can be extended a number of times depending on quorum over time. We've recommended 48 hours just to give you know, a time frame to these delegations in terms of when they would be triggered. But if there are concerns about that time frame, we could make it shorter, for example, 24 hours, but that would be up to council. they'll now take any questions, and we've also got Lachlan on the line who will be able to assist as well.
Okay, so I'm going to just run down the list. If you haven't got a question, just say pass. It's just going to be hard to see everyone otherwise. And if you have a question, I'll pause a minute for you to allow you to say it. So first of all, Councillor Deputy Mayor Taylor, any questions?
Pass.
Councillor Bunting.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. Just very quickly, so we can make this decision and then move on with the rest of the meeting quite comfortably. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Mark, Councillor Forsyth.
It's around the time frame, 48 hours. Can I just ask either Lachlan or Mothler why all time frames we've been talking about so far have been 24, and with the nature of the speed of which our environments have been changing, I would think that 48 hours is too long. So why have they come up with 48 hours, please?
So that was really just a number that we came up with in terms of that would give enough notice. That we just saw that as a number that would give enough notice to the chief executive that those delegations would be exercised. So it would give 2 days before the meeting, before those decisions would have been made. But we're not tied to that, and it could happily work at 24 hours as well. That would be a matter for council. So we're more than happy to support changing that.
The logic is that we want to fulfil our democratic responsibility, and our default position is the elected members vote on a topic. So we came up with 48 hours. It is probably pushing the boundaries, but it's not unrealistic. But it does provide an opportunity for elected member participation in all, if not all, 99% of decisions. That was the goal. If we test it and we find that it's not working, we'll bring it back and shorten it. But I don't think it's an unreasonable starting point, and I think we can do most things within that 48 hours. And I think for the most part, 99.999% of the time, we can actually stand up a meeting with 48 hours notice and not impede the business too much. So I'm reasonably comfortable.
So if there were 24 hours, we could also test that argumentatively.
The 24 hours would be achieve the agility aspect at a compromise of potential democracy. 48 hours discounts the agility but maximises the democratic opportunity. That's the compromise you guys have got to consider here.
Because it would be difficult to get everyone together in 24 hours? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, I don't think so at all. I think given that no one is allowed to go anywhere, and we've got cell phones and we're having regular meetings, I think setting up a meeting in 24 hours is actually not unrealistic for me, Paula. I think your challenge is an apt one.
Okay. Any more questions, Margaret?
Well, the last statement, I think it's been answered, but if I put it anyway, and then Richard can confirm whether that's what he meant or not. If I recall correctly, the last detail of delegation that we ceded to the CEO was using a 24-hour time frame. Is that correct?
If I may answer that, from my recollection, I don't have Wednesday's report ahead of me, but that was from the amendment proposed by Councillor Thompson. So the recommendation from staff involved a consultation step with select elected members who would then consult further with others, but there wasn't a 24-hour time frame in terms of calling a consultation meeting.
Okay, thank you. But in your last comments, Richard, you said 24 hours is workable, and you're right. We have been operating 24-hour timeframes all week.
If you were to be fair, right now I would recommend 24 hours, and I just think it's good discipline to be meeting regularly anyway, and we'll be able to achieve it in 24 hours. I don't think there'd be a situation where, to be honest, I won't be able to get you guys together for at least a quorum. No one here appears sick at the moment. No one's going out and about. Everyone's self-isolated. I think we've got the structure to achieve a 24-hour turnaround. If someone wants to move a motion with that or an amendment to that, I can live with that, and we would make it work.
Okay, let's carry on down the questions. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Councillor Gallagher.
Pass.
Any questions? Pass. Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think this is wise. The other thing that hasn't been mentioned is if internet crashes and regardless of sickness, we won't be able to achieve a quorum. So I think it's good having that plan B.
Okay, Councillor McPherson.
Pass.
Councillor Kish, Naidu Rose. Thank you. Councillor O'Leary.
Has it been moved?
Not yet, no.
I'll move it. Staff recommendation.
With the 48 hours?
We just agreed sort of on 24, didn't we?
Well, nobody's put that up. Do you want to put that up? There's nothing on the table at the moment. So you could put up the staff recommendation changing 48 to 24.
I'll do that.
Have you got a second? Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Margaret. Rob Pascoe, any questions?
Pass.
Sarah? Max?
I just in terms of the backup and extended to the CE delegations, Mothla, I just wanted to be clear that there are no additional powers that we would be extending over what we approved earlier in the week.
I can confirm that there aren't any extra powers being extended in this instance. It matches up with what was delegated on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Sorry, hang on. I've just lost everyone here.
Yeah, we all have.
I
What's
think
happened?
We've got the motion. The motion up.
Yeah, when someone else came in the meeting, we've now lost the view of everyone. How does it? Oh, right, we're back. Oh, okay.
Clever, Amy.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So the staff recommendation has been moved by Councillor O'Leary, seconded by. Oh, well, is there any debate? Any debate? Just wave your hand, and if I see you waving, we'll go. No, I don't see any wavy hands. Therefore, it has been moved. It has been seconded. All in favour, please raise your hand. So let me go. Hold your hands up, please, for a bit. So I've got me, Margaret, Mark, Jeff, Ewan, Martin, Rob, Sarah, Dave, Kesh, Ryan, and Angela. That's everyone. Have you got that, Becca?
And Maxine.
And sorry.
Yes, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you for helping me out there, Maxine, because I'm sure I'm going to miss something somewhere. Okay, so that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the on page 11, the confirmation of the extraordinary minutes of the 25th of March. I'm happy to move.
I'll second.
Councillor Ewan will second. Is there any debate? Wave your hand. No. Any discussion? No. I'll put it to the vote. All in favour, raise your hands. Okay, that's myself, Margaret, Mark, Jeff, Ewan, Martin, Rob, Sarah, Dave, Kesh, Ryan, Angela, and Max.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's the easier bit. Now we're on to the package, the COVID-19 response package, which starts on page 19. Just going to get there, excuse me. So, councillors, in that regard, we did have 2 hours of discussion and questioning yesterday to formulate this response. It was pretty clear support for numbers 1 to 7. So what I think I'll do is take I'll take questions in an order off the sheet, and then we'll put the staff recommendations one by one, but we'll do them, probably be able to cut through them quite quickly, and then we'll go to the new matters that have come up since.
Paula, sorry, quick question. There was a public forum item. Will that be presented? That was, I understand, sent through
Yes. So Becca, how do you want to handle that? You said it was to be circulated.
So we've circulated the document to elected members, and what we'll do is make it available via the minutes post the meeting. Alternatively, we can read that out here, but it's quite a long submission. So my suggestion is that you read it and just take it into consideration for your decision making. And then we will attach it for purpose of transparency to the public following the meeting.
Okay.
It might prove difficult to read it and listen at the same time.
Well, it did arrive a little while ago. Yes, you're right. It is hard to read and be on the screen at the same time.
Did we want to just the other option is we can just stop the meeting for 2 minutes to allow people to read that submission.
I've read it. Councillors, would you like 2 minutes to read it? Just not.
I think 2 minutes. Yeah.
Is it? Sorry, has it been emailed? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's in an email from Amy.
No. Right.
So we've got 2 minutes to read it. Off you go. Have a quick read. It has come in. Everybody okay? Okay. Cool. Thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention, Sarah. It speaks to some of the items that are before us today, but also the more medium long-term phase 2 of our considerations. So now I'm just going to run down a list of councillors' names. It's I've just going to go in the order that I've got these lists. And if you've got a question, just your two or three top questions on anything, but not to the extent that we had yesterday, because I think we had a fair go at it yesterday as well. So, but anything fresh that you want to clarify, please do so. I'm going to start with Councillor Gallagher.
No questions at this time. Please put me later for debate.
Oh yeah, we'll all get to debate. Thank you, Councillor Bunting.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. Just want to see if there's any update, Lance. There was going to be some discussion with the with Andy and those funders to solidify up how that would look. Can you give us any more updates on that?
Yeah, I've got Helen's online, so I'll just get her to give us an update on that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so I've tried to put a little bit of that information into the report, but how that would look is that the application would come in, the funders would get together, the key funders would get together and discuss which funder should fund that. So for example, if it came in from a Hamilton organisation, we might say Hamilton's City Council should fund that one, or we might say actually this has a wider regional impact, let's all fund this together, or actually let's put, so it might be a shared funding. And then whichever funder decided to take that on, they would then meet with their own kind of approval panel, which if it was a Hamilton City Council funded application, that could include a councillor representative, and then that decision would be made. We could process that application and the payment within 1 to 3 days. We would attempt to do it within the earliest time frame possible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's all I've got.
That's all your questions. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. I had a question to Helen. It's the only question I have. Helen, I'm really trying to get a better understanding of whether I support 500,000 now versus $1 million and holding some of it in reserve. My question to you is this. I've had some feedback this morning from some of the social service players saying it's less about urgency now, it's more about ensuring we have longevity and that the sector is protected in 12 months when they go through a second round, when they go through their annual funding. I just would love your insight into whether you feel the same and whether your response to that.
Yeah, I think both of those things are true. I guess what we're seeing right now is that there is some real immediate pressures. Hence the reason the government has come through so quickly with their funding. We're having reducing, our workforces are reducing. People are having to find different ways of delivering services. So there is an immediate need. But you are also right about there will be that longer term need in terms of building back up resilience, community-led development approaches. I personally obviously advocating for the greater amount because I do think the need is great, but I personally don't have an issue with some of it being kept in reserve, providing it was ring-fenced in reserve. But with the option to bring it forward potentially via a council, decision, if there was the need to do that.
Thank you. One second question, if I could ask Mayor Paula of Helen.
Yes.
Thank you. I've spoken to people today who confirm the night shelter's full and in lockdown. The YMCA is full and in lockdown. And that's exciting. They're doing the right thing and they're full. My immediate concern is, can you give me any insight? Currently, the number of homeless that haven't been able to get into those two facilities, and how are we managing and helping them? And as a subgroup of that, I understand about 15 homeless have decided they still want to live rough, but they've created their own bubble, which is positive. Can you give me an insight into that?
Yes, so I've been speaking with People's Project today also, and yes, I can't give you the exact numbers of people that are currently on the streets. There are a number registered, but not all of them are homeless. I do know that the People's Project and the police are all aware, and our own city safety people are all aware of who the people are, and significant efforts are being made around emergency housing. So, and that has been set up and is available, and also the police will use enforcement if required.
Thank you.
Councillor Forsyth.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Helen, can you just clarify for me, please, whether the $500 or $1 million proposed is for 12 months? What's the time frame, or is it yearly?
It is for 12 months, so that the proposal is for 12 months, which is why I don't have an issue with the suggestion to put some of it into reserve, providing there was an option to bring it forward if need be. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I'm not sure whether now's the right time to bring it up, but the public forum email that we've just read if I caught it all in 2 minutes, referred to making fruit trees either private or public available for fruit collection. Is that something that we're considering today, or is that detail for later on?
Is that a question to me, Margaret?
Yes.
I haven't. Yeah, I think it's a question for later on. It's something we need to look into, along with it is something we are working with different groups who are looking for food sources and distribution, and we can have some conversations with them around how we manage that, and also with our park staff.
Margaret, could I just jump in here too? Sean Murray and I have just been conversing via text. The suggestion there from Anna and Holly and others around, could council help out with some facilities for storing and distributing food? The answer is yes. We would just, we just need a little bit of time just to work that out. Sean's just looking into council facilities with chillers and things like that might be available. So, we're working with, whoever we need to make things happen.
Okay, thanks, Lance. My last question is just around the 165. I don't know what number it is, but contribution to the economic development package. So my understanding that the 165 request is for comms and not sure what else, I can't remember, sorry, I haven't pulled it up yet. There it is. What's ICT? Comms, ICT, Development Oversight Function Initiative, lead up to 30K. I'm not quite sure what that means. Just a little bit of more clarity around what the 165 is about, please. Sean.
Michael Bassett-Foss from Te Waka is actually on the call and can answer some questions on that.
Pause a minute, Sean. I was going to ask about that because the staff on the call and councillors, but we were unaware that other people were in the call. Is there a reason for that, for them to be through the whole discussion? I mean, I know they're public and they can watch like everyone else, but out of interest, how did that occur, Richard?
So basically, there's an email that was circulated last night from Te Waka. I meant to raise it at the beginning of the meeting so we could reorganise things. An opportunity for direct questions of Michael in respect of that email. So my apologies for not getting that up front at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, no, I have no issue with them speaking to the item, but there are has been a on these calls. There's only been staff and elected members, and we really did need to know that they were in the room. Only till I was flicking across that I noticed that there was a few people who aren't staff in this discussion.
It is, yeah. All right, people. I should let you know.
Okay, carry on, Sean. Sorry. Oh, you're.
Yeah, sorry, I was simply saying that if you've got questions on that particular initiative, that's the reason for Te Waka having been invited to this call, because it was a new initiative that hadn't been discussed on the previous calls. So perhaps Michael might be able to answer that question of Councillor Margaret's.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Mayor Southgate, councillors. You appreciate the opportunity to talk to this item. We'll log off after questions. In the business scene, we're seeing a lot of noise in relation to communications to business from various agencies. We've done some work with aligning those agencies. However, the feedback from businesses is that they're still unsure of where to reach out to. Businesses are failing. They need assistance with filling out some of the government forms and also some improved comms, amplification of comms. So the proposal is to set up a centralised response function. I've got off the call from regional development agencies and other parts of the country where they've set up similar initiatives. There's been a significantly greater reach out by businesses for assistance and the provision of businesses, and up to tenfold in some regions. It would be a referral system to current service providers like MSD's wage support scheme, or to Te Waka's very own business growth advisors as examples. Support for filling out government applications. We know there's an appetite out there. We had a webinar just half an hour ago that we had 100 businesses on, and the reason it was only 100 is because there were more lined up but couldn't get on, and it was about cash flow management issues. So you know, there is a significant need, and happy to take more detailed questions. I've got my colleague online as well, Michelle Hollins, who's fronting the COVID response on behalf of Te Waka.
I'll take some direction from the councillors, but I wonder, because I was going to take questions on the whole suite of options before us, not just this one. That was my surprise with having Te Waka and others in the attendance throughout. I understand the reason for it, and your explanation was really good, Michael. It's good to have you here to explain that. I wonder if we shouldn't just run down questions on that item while you're with us, because otherwise I think it's going to go into other items, the community items and other stuff, which potentially is a reasonably long meeting anyway. So councillors, with your leave, I'm going to invite you all to have your questions of Te Waka on that late item at this point. So I'll just run through the list and see if anybody's got questions for them while they're participating in this, and then we can go back to the broader business.
Can I finish my questions, please, Mayor Paula?
Yes, yep, and I'm going to get to that, but I'm just letting councillors know that we'll just talk about that topic now, and we'll go back to the suite of other things afterwards. Off you go, Margaret.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. I mean, that was a general kind of response, but it didn't really give me the detail I was after. But never mind, I'll keep probing. So a couple of questions. How much is council currently giving to Te Waka? What other organisations, there's talk of HCBA, Chamber of Commerce, Waikato Tourism, etc., and Te Waka itself, I presume. So what sort of contributions, monetary contributions, are these organisations making? You'd also talk about filling out forms. Are those the forms are these a different set of forms, or the ones that are, the one pager that we're currently seeing online? And what's the difference between what you're proposing to offer and what central government is offering in support businesses big and small?
Working through those questions, and please remind me of ones that I miss. Central government doesn't offer a call facility for businesses to phone into that offers a Waikato solution on the ground. This is a Waikato response. The forms are indeed those ones that you alluded to, pointing people to them, offering guidance on how to fill them out. And it's not just MSD's wage support forms, it's other ways to actually engage with business support as well. In terms of other agency funding towards this, we've got a lot of in-kind support coming through from business leaders, consultancy organisations, and the like towards this, and a number of the other pieces of work we've got going on. In terms of this initiative, there's no other dollar figures at the moment. We're proposing to partner with Hamilton City Council to kick it off. My concern is it's actually not going to be enough. And if we need to scale it up, then we'll need to reach out to other sorts of funders, including philanthropic organisations. We're yeah, I'll leave it at that and just take questions or fill in any
you missed one. Thank you. How much is HCC currently giving?
Yeah, currently 160,000. I don't have it in front of me, but it's of that order.
And just to be clear, you haven't reached out to any other organisation for financial support. You've come to us first, and only us.
Yeah, to you and only you. We're reaching out to other organisations for other programs that we're involved with launching as well. As an example, employee matching service for employees made redundant. and linking them to companies that actually need employees at the moment. So that's totally different.
And I think lastly, what do you talked about a local call centre and helping people fill out those forms. What else are you doing that's different? Or what I'm looking for is how much replication is happening here with what central government is doing as far as support and what you're proposing to do.
Yeah, and it's sort of by way of example, our central government committed $4 million to the Regional Business Partner Network. We offer that service on the ground through our business growth advisors already. We've had 5 advisors on the ground. The extra funding, all that $4 million is not just for Waikato, it's across the country. That increased funding will increase our business advisors on the ground from 5 to 9, and also provide things such as webinars and so forth. And also they've increased the amount of funding directly to small businesses at the moment. So there's an example of one of the number of things that we're doing already on the ground.
Okay, let's carry on with some questions on this item. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Ms. Southgate. Thank you, Michael. Just a quick confirmation from you. So when I read the staff report, I understood quite clearly that this was an immediate need, that the businesses are obviously in desperate need for help. And so this is basically a business help / call centre for now. And then later on down the line, you will, I guess, look at, you know, sort of medium and long-term things. Is that about right as a summer?
Yeah, there is a changing need over time. It's immediate survival of businesses right now. And then as we move forward, it'll turn more into revival. The businesses that are reaching out now need support. You know, the survey we did earlier this week, they need support and well-being of the business owners, support around HR for their staff, and financial management, for example. We think that over the coming weeks, that support will change to questions around solvency, support for business close down in a respectful and graceful way. And there's not a lot of support already out there for these types of things. So we're needing to pull together groups of people that offer well-being type services, but group them so that they can tailor them for business owners. And it's different to the types of things that's been done before.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Southgate, I was prepared to move the staff recommendation as is, but can I do that, or are you still happy to take them all separately?
What you were going to do, the whole 1 to 7 suite plus this, or?
What's on page 19, which includes, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm going to do them separately, actually, variety of reasons, but we shall buzz through them. Councillor Wilson indicated a wish to move this one. Would you like to second it?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor Paula, actually, I was moving the community services one, not the...
Oh, okay.
Sorry for any misunderstanding there.
Yes, Mark Bunting has also expressed a wish to move that, and I'll get you on as a seconder. But Councillor O'Leary, would you like to move this one?
Well, there's a whole lot there, I guess, I'd like to move. So obviously people have jumped in. I just need to understand how you're going to do that then, because I wasn't aware there were some people that have popped motions up.
No, they haven't. They've just asked to move things as it's been going along, as you have. But what I was going to do is one at a time, if that's okay. But the discussion all wrapped in one, but we're going to go one through at a time, and we'll probably breeze through those. So I'll just continue with questions, shall I? And then you'll have an opportunity to move something that you like at the end. Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. I only have questions on 2 and 6, not on this.
Okay, I'm only taking questions on this while we have extra guests with us in the Zoom conference. Councillor Taylor, Deputy Mayor Taylor.
No, pass on this, thanks, I'm good.
Councillor Naidu-Rove.
No, I'm good as well, thank you.
Councillor Pascoe.
Yes, I've got some questions on item 8. I'm just sort of sensing that this might, Michael, this contribution that we're making might only be the tip of the iceberg. Is that, you know, should we be preparing ourselves for much more than 165,000, given that the support that businesses might be looking for, which is down on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th bullet point down on page 25 of our report, that's still to be confirmed. And whilst I suspect there will be payment in kind, or there'll be work in kind by PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, legal firms, there still might be some substantial costs that might be incurred that will need to be picked up out of this fund.
Yeah, I concur. This thing, to pick up a term that's been used widely, is unprecedented and moving very, very quickly. We've taken a stab at the dark on something that we think we can launch with the in-kind support that we're seeing come in at the moment. We think we're able to cope. Until we launch this, get it off the ground, there's certainly some question marks. We might be able to deliver even under, but I doubt it. But it seems in the right ballpark compared to what's being done around the country and other regions.
Will there be other funders who are likely to come in and top up our contribution, which is being asked for 65k?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned the philanthropic organisations around well-being of people, in particular business owners in our case, and we've already reached out to them.
And so is there any commitment from them that if we did contribute the 165, they would be potentially a party to contribute this more?
We still need to go through the application process, so
okay.
There's been no verbal commitment, no.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Those are my questions.
Mayor Southgate, if you wouldn't mind if I could say something just for a second. It's Michelle here from Te Waka.
Hi, yes, you may.
Hey, listen, just to be really clear, this is an approach funded by Hamilton for Hamilton. If we extend ourselves to other districts, we will be most certainly looking to receive support in extending the service. It is co-funded. We are obviously funded by central government, but like Michael said, the philanthropics and PwC, KPMG and Deloitte in kind will also support us. This is far more than just helping a business fill out a form. This is the support that businesses are asking for, to give them someone to reach out to, someone to talk to give them clarity. Our business owners have started, and many have got the wage subsidy, filled out what was a very simplistic form. They are now looking to, how do I work out how to secure my mortgage, my home, my income? How do I collect my debtors? How do I understand my supply chains? How do I get my business going again? They're working in a very complex environment, and they do need a support network to pick up the phone. So this is an opportunity for Hamilton to take a lead in partnership with Te Waka to give businesses in the Hamilton community somewhere to go to.
Councillor Pascoe, any more?
Just Michelle, most of these businesses have their own lawyers and their own accountants. Those and will have paid fees over the years to those professional advisors. Are we getting feedback that they are no longer available to these businesses that are suffering and they have to go somewhere else to get that advice?
The larger organisations absolutely have their range of support functions. The smaller ones don't.
The large professional advising firms, you mean?
No, the medium to large businesses have their current accountants and legal advisors. The smaller ones don't have those on tap.
Okay.
Yeah, and Councillor Pascoe, if I may, what we're seeing is those business owners also frightened to spend money on those professional advisors. So Te Waka is at the moment with the Regional Business Partner Fund is the administrator of the central government fund that will support those businesses to pay for those professional services. So that was the fund that Michael was talking about, up to $5,000 per business. Again, not enough. We'll be pushing central government to put more into that fund.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those are my questions. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. I have Councillor Thompson next.
Thanks, Michael and Michelle. I wanted to kind of expand on Councillor Rob's question there around possible ongoing funding. The proposal talks about 3 months in terms of kind of setup and personnel and things, but I suspect that, you know, the business community is going to need support going on further than that. And so where would you be looking at getting funding from to continue this, you know, after that 3 months that we're looking at potentially funding?
Yeah, thank you. This thing is moving fast. As I talked, it's a survival focus right now and a revival into the future. And it's I believe too early to tell what the scene in the business community will look like in 3 months' time. To be fair, we know from the Christchurch earthquake response that had a lot of government support. There was actually an 18-month program, but that was a significant physical rebuild. This is at the moment a more of an economic rebuild and restructuring that's required. So I haven't got an answer to your question. There's a number of funding sources that could be tapped into to turn it into a sustainable proposition, or it could be dovetailed back into existing organisations as the refocusing of existing organisations' resources better aligned with the response at hand.
Right. So there would potentially, after that 3 months, if you don't have other funders that can step in to assist it going forward, if it's needed, if it's perceived that it is needed for a longer period of time, then there's still a way for say a slightly modified service to be provided.
Absolutely, and I'd like to hope that a much more scaled back service.
Yeah. One other question I had was just in terms of, so I've got 2 other questions. One was, what systems would there be for, or what need do you think there is for, I guess, assistance to small business owners that maybe aren't particularly fluent in English, or, you know, are going to have different communication barriers?
We've had that feedback through. We hosted a multi-agency forum earlier this week, and one of the agencies noted that was an issue with some of their community. We've provided feedback to government already so that they can modify some of the language on their forms. And we've thought about reaching out to local translation organisations that may be a part of this as well. Your question is well poised. There's a number of ways that the solution could be provided. I haven't got the immediate answer.
Okay, yeah, because I would want to have some kind of assurance that this service would be available to those, you know, to the wider community. Yeah. Sorry, last question was just criteria. So you talked about with Rob's question that medium to larger businesses probably still have access to legal or accounting services and things, but it's a smaller one. So what are your thoughts around criteria for those who would be being provided with assistance?
Yeah, we wouldn't put up criteria. I've actually had phone calls from very large businesses that whilst they have access to some legal and accounting and other advisory services, are still wanting commentary on services that they wouldn't normally ask for. So there'd be no criteria we'd put up in the first instance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Michael. So I think you touched on it earlier, Michael, but you guys were doing a support package that enabled businesses to work with accountants to establish cash flow forecasts and that sort of thing. I saw a bit of that briefly. Was that parallel to this or separate too?
Yeah, no, it's a component of it, Councillor. We realise there's a number of tools that either exist inside accountancy organisations or need to be developed. So we're working with those consultancy organisations at the moment to provide it. They're very willing at the moment to provide their resources and their time to assist us. For example, a basic checklist that can be provided to or worked through with business owners about where they are in their survival mode planning. Is it, business closed down at one end, or is it just staff welfare issues? And each of those check boxes might well trigger a referral or a support mechanism.
Thanks, Michael. I would like to support you on this. I do have a question for you though, while you're in this forum. Can you do more, Te Waka, to advocate via central government? I don't think the business community is getting a strong enough voice.
Yes, I would concur with that. We're talking with multiple agencies within government on the messages that we've conveying on behalf of businesses. I think as a region we can improve how we can be more aligned around the important projects, initiatives that we've got going on in the region. We've certainly been doing a lot of it as Te Waka has evolved over the last 18 months. And I commend Council on being proactive in that regard. And, we look forward to ongoing support in relation to that.
Is that it, Councillor Ryan Hamilton? All good? Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Oosten?
Thanks, Michael and Michelle. I can certainly see that there is an immediate need for the kinds of services that you're proposing, and that over time that will develop and require ongoing support, and that may require some further approach to council for funding. I wonder if you could give us some kind of idea about what kind of reporting we might expect from Te Waka on the provision of those services and some of the outcomes that you'll achieve.
Yeah, we've suggested a monthly review on this program, and just happy to take guidance from your staff on what sort of reporting would be required. But I envisage a number of businesses engaged, the types of requirement from businesses, the number of referrals, in time, ideally the number of staff actually kept in jobs or referred to other jobs.
Thanks.
Okay, is that's it, Councillor? Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Pass.
Councillor Bunting?
No? Oh, no, nothing.
Oh,
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, so we've had a full round of questions on that.
No, you didn't have a question from me.
Oh, did I? I apologise.
And nor did you from your loyal Deputy Chair of Economic Development.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm following down this list, so it might be might have dropped off. I apologise. Good that you sing out, Councillor Gallagher.
Oh, look, I'm still here. That's great. Thank you for recognition, Your Worship. I guess boundaryless. You know, obviously businesses are boundaryless and people are working across the central Waikato. Can you outline the specific interactions you've had with the Waikato Regional Council, given that they've played a key role in, you know, they've got a whole lot of economic, you know, leadership type roles, and I've just been interested in, it comes around the funding. Just could you just give us a slight good regional perspective, particularly in terms of central Waikato?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just line up Michelle to sort of finish off my update, but Te Waka hosted a forum of economic development practitioners from councils on Tuesday this week to engage in the respective initiatives, challenges and opportunities going on around the region, and where the councils could actually support each other and we could better support councils. From that meeting, there were a number of initiatives that were spawned that the council ED staff are engaged in various ways in various committees. So we are reaching out around the region, but specifically to Waikato, I'll just pass over to Michelle. Michelle? Michelle's freezing on us. I'll fill in the gaps. Yep, we are engaged with Waikato District Council staff in relation to the support going on the ground.
So Waikato Regional Council, we're partnering with them to actually capture the Waikato's economic story. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I can't hear you now.
It's cutting out, Michael. Do you want to carry on?
Yeah. Sorry. In relation to Waikato Regional Council, yeah,
Sorry,
they've
Michael,
seconded staff
can you
across
hear
to.
me now?
Yes, but you're very faint and cutting in and out.
Sorry.
No, we can't do it like that, Michelle, unfortunately.
I thought you said regional.
Okay, no, we can't hear you in that form. We'll have to go back to Michael. Sorry, Michael.
Apologies. Did you say regional council?
I've said regional council, and my question, I mean, obviously I think it's very helpful, particularly for our immediate neighbours, the Hamilton metro area, of course, Waikato district and Waipa, you know, in terms of the integration of businesses, but also particularly in terms of the perhaps regional council, because I'm just looking at the relationships and contributions financially or otherwise of our key partners to this initiative.
Yeah, Waikato Regional Council's seconding resource across and being a key part of our intelligence component around economic resources, filtering through the survey that we've done and providing intelligence into that component. And we haven't reached out to Waipa or Waikato District in relation to this initiative specifically. We currently around about 50 to 55% of the businesses we engage with are from Hamilton City Council District. If we extend that out to Greater Metro Hamilton, it's more in the order of 70 or 80. As we said earlier, we're keen to partner with Hamilton to focus on Hamilton and get this initiative off the ground, but acknowledging that businesses don't have borders and there's likely to be overflow. The first points of call to spread this further and actually scale up as resources are needed are Waipa and Waikato districts.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your questions?
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, thank you, obviously.
Oh. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Paula. Michael, Michelle, thanks for the work you do. Appreciated. My questions are to you, Michael, because your connection seems to be slightly better. You've answered a lot of the questions already. Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. I see there is a budget line of 30,000 for 3 months from the lead of this particular initiative, and that this person had worked on the Christchurch response for 10,000 a month. I'm assuming we're giving them full time.
Yeah, that's absolutely our intention, and I won't mention the person's name without that person's agreement, obviously, but the value that he could add with impact and its speed, and they are available, would be immense.
Thank you. I know we've got a limited time, and Mayor Paula will pull me quickly. The 50K for the 3 months, how many staff?
Oh, we envisaged 3 to 4. It might be a combination of part-timers.
Good. I see reference to Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. Didn't realise such a beast existed. I'm assuming it's a subsection of the Waikato Chamber of Commerce.
Well picked up. It was meant to be Waikato Chamber of Commerce.
Good. Next question and last question. I'm less interested in you guys providing services to people winding down their business. I feel for them, and I know that may happen. I'm interested in trying to keep businesses alive. I'm assuming your services will also be extended to non-profits who employ people making a meaningful contribution and will desperately be in the need of cash flow development assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've historically always provided assistance to non-for-profit organisations anyway. Yep.
Thanks, mate. Good work. Cheers.
Hi. Have I missed anyone? I'm aware that we have at least one Māngai Māori by my invitation, because this is such important times to listen in. They don't get a vote, of course, but Te Pora, are you still there? Do you have any questions? No, no one's there. Okay.
Sorry, Mayor Paula. Te Pora's had to shoot off.
Oh, okay. Hi, Norm. Sorry, I couldn't see exactly who was there. Have you got any questions on this?
No questions.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on. Are there any thank you, Michael and Michelle, for being here and able to answer those questions, because I'm pretty sure that helped us navigate through the item much better. So we do appreciate that.
You know, appreciate the opportunity, Mayor and councillors. I'll sign off now. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you, councillors. We're all navigating how this goes this first time. So I guess we're going to learn how to smooth out some of the wrinkles as we go forward. Any questions on the, I'm just going to run down the list on the main items. I'm just going to run down the names as I have them here on this piece of paper. If I accidentally miss you off, please sing out. Councillor Forsyth.
Yeah, I would like to know, are there any other people here that are a part of this official council meeting that we should know about?
You can see the list
other than staff or councillors or elected members.
There are a few. There isn't. They're all staff or contractors.
Can I correct that? So we have got Lachlan Maldowney, who's our solicitor on the call.
I said all contracted. I said
all contracted. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all staff or contracted to council.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I've got some questions, but I'll save them to the end. No further questions around this. So before Michael shot off, and I know it's going back to the last item, but I just wanted to make sure that this was a one-off and they were going to come back in 3 months' time. Can anybody assist with that answer?
Sean?
Yeah, so I think Michael said that, and it's in the paper, that this would be reviewed monthly. So the commitment is for this financial year till the end of June, and anything further would be considered as a separate item.
Okay, great. And this extra cost, because it wasn't on our original list, it was a late item, so that fits within our financial constraints as well.
Yep. So all of the items 1 to 8 that you're looking at today would be can be covered from this year's in this year's budget. I mean, essentially none of these items are funded, so it's So it's debt funded, but they can be accommodated within our debt limits. Any of the larger things that we're looking at for next year, we'll bring back obviously much more detailed financial modelling for some of those capital program kind of things.
Okay, and yeah, lastly, this quantum here obviously is going to be considered and be all put in the big annual plan discussions when we come to that soon.
So the items that you're looking at now are for this financial year. So the annual plan is dealing with next financial year. So these items that we're considering today are not part of the annual plan. What we choose to do next year, and it might be a continuation of some of these things, or it might be other options. The items that are in phase 2, they will all be considered as part of annual plan.
Great, thanks for that clarity. So that's just going to be more debt funded, basically. Yes.
Mayor Paula, it's Blair here. I can just add to Councillor Margaret's comment, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Just as you know, I'm an advisor to the Te Waka board. So, Councillor Margaret, we're meeting on an almost second daily basis. So, this proposal from Te Waka will be discussed regularly. And if there's a sense to scale it up and need to scale up, as Michael said, there'll be approaches made to those other councils in the immediate area around Hamilton, first and foremost. So whilst it talks about a 3-month term, I think we'll be looking at it very regularly to see how it goes. We won't be waiting for a month to review progress. It'll be reviewed by the board very regularly. And certainly, as I say, if there's a need to scale it up and scale up into the other areas, we'll be talking to those other councils straight away for their help.
Thank you.
Councillors, before I take the next lot of the list, I just want to go take a step backwards. I got alerted to the fact that there are potentially a couple of amendments, Sean, Lachlan, to F and G, the way that the recommendations are put.
Yes, so I'm happy to talk to it. Lachlan might jump in if he wants to, but so just with F and G, those staff recommendations have been updated and diligent. Essentially, all that's changing is that it's just noting that, so I'll just read them out. So it's approved 280,000 of operating funding for the Rates Relief Initiative as part of phase 1 of Council's COVID-19 response package in accordance with Section 80 of the Local Government Act 2002, and request staff to consider and present criteria and any possible policy changes for approval at the next available council meeting. So it's just referencing that this is a decision that we're making under Section 80 of the Local Government Act, and then this G is the same. So it's the 800,000 of payment deferrals for development contribution relief initiative as part of phase 1 of Council's COVID-19 response package in accordance with Section 80 of the LGA, and request staff to consider, etc., etc.
So really, that's just to make sure that the legal wording of those recommendations is correct.
Correct. There's no change to the substance of those recommendations.
Yep, that's right. No substantive change whatsoever. Just simply an express reference to Section 80, just to ensure that there's no questions around the legality of the decision making being at odds with existing policies of council.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll go back to the list. Next is Councillor Gallagher.
Not at this stage.
Okay, so we're just going to have one run through of questions, then we're going to go into debate. So if you have a question, I'll take it. If not, we'll go.
Well, yeah, but that's somewhat artificial with respect, and I'm trying to keep this simple. There may be some ability of people to ask urgent supplementaries. I'll try and be reasonable.
I'll try and accommodate that, but I'm trying to run this in the best way possible. Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hamilton?
Sorry, Mayor Paula, is this a question on the suite or one particular item?
On the suite, anything within those.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, look, just firstly on that, just point of clarity on that G, Sean, the 800,000 of payment deferrals that we're approving. So that is, we're approving a deferral, not a waiver of those that quantum. Is that correct?
Yeah, so essentially it's, Greg can jump in if I get this wrong, but essentially it's deferring those payments. So we would expect that we would not collect the money in this financial year, but would probably still collect it next financial year. And
sure. Okay, so we'll just see that as a timing thing. On rent relief, number 5, and I'm looking at page 23 of Diligent. Current income from rent is approximately 350, but we're allowing up to 525 based on 50%. I'm just, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but if we're getting 350,000 income and half of the people are going to defer, hey?
Per month. Yeah. So that's half of 3 months worth.
Right. Okay, I get it.
Sorry, I wasn't very clear on that.
That's okay. Yeah, no, that's all for this document. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions on, and one of them may, or two of them may even need amendments. That my problem isn't so much the motion, but the report that goes there. First one is 2. Just looking at the report on page 21, where you've got the details for each of the numbered items.
Yeah.
The second to last bullet point on that page, provide a place for people to live. This is the support service we might be called on to support. What about for people that are organisations that are providing rental support? Maybe Sean or Helen can answer this. If there's an organisation out there providing short-term rental support separate from what MSD or WINS might provide, are we covered for supporting them? Because it's just talking about the homeless there. What about those unable to meet their rents?
I hadn't considered that, but there's no reason that we couldn't. Obviously, you know, like you say, there'd be a first point of call with Kāinga Ora and MSD and others. But if that's something you wanted to include in the criteria, then we could extend that.
I don't know that it needs, Mayor Paula needs an amendment. It's more how you define providing a place for people to live. I just want to make sure we do, if there's a situation where a community organisation is supporting someone in that way, that we can support them.
Dave, what we've said in this is that, and it's in the resolution, is that we'd come back with a list of criteria to be approved, a more detailed list, and we could include it in that to make sure that gets covered off for you.
I'd be happy with that at this point.
Okay.
My second question related to point 6, the rates relief, and again the explanations on page 23 and 24, where if you're coming back to us based on elected member feedback, etc., that last paragraph with some broader definitions, Sean, on this, the second to last bullet point over the page, we've assumed an additional 500 ratepayers. That could well be wrong. I would prefer to see that just sort of cut out so it's more open-ended. So when you come back, you're not restricting yourself to something that only 500 ratepayers can access. The 280,000 obviously in the short term, in the next month, will handle things, but beyond that may not.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I guess I just wanted to be clear on what our assumption was in estimating the cost. So we have, as you sort of say, we normally have 500 people accessing that rebate per year, and so we are essentially assuming that we would get double that amount, so essentially the same amount in just the last quarter. So it's essentially assuming that we'd get sort of 4 to 5, my math might be slightly wrong, it was just about 4 times as many people as we have currently accessing that scheme. I think what we would so I guess that's the assumption on which we've made the financial estimate. If we put that out there and find that we're getting far more or a far greater number of people applying for that
Sorry,
rebate.
that's not my question.
Oh, sorry.
My question relates to, if you read the paragraph at the bottom of page 23, it's the feedback that a number of us gave yesterday or the day before when we last discussed it, which talked about broadening in several ways, potentially broadening the way that this would be interpreted. I understand how you arrived at the 280,000, you explained that the other day, but we've suggested you look at some broader interpretations, which therefore 280,000 may not foot the bill. No problem with that in the short term, but I don't need another explanation of how you arrived at 280. I want to know that you're not going to regard yourselves as restricted to 280,000 when the report comes back.
That's correct. So the 280 is the amount that we're asking for. If we find that we need more than that because more people are applying for that rebate, then we would come back to council to identify that and get whatever further approvals we would need.
Well, that's still not quite my question. We've talked about broadening it, not just the numbers, but the way the criteria. So it's not clear from your answer, Sean, that that's what staff are going to be doing.
So that's certainly the intent, is to broaden the criteria. So I think you made the suggestion, Councillor Dave, that rather than require 12 months worth of financial statements or bank details, whatever, that we would look at 1 month. So the intent is to try and capture people who have recently been affected by COVID-19, for example, lost their jobs. So that is definitely the intent, and that's the basis on which we've estimated the increased cost.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think it can be done the next time. I'm still a little dissatisfied because the 280,000 is the same cost as we had 2 days ago, and it hasn't increased at all. But I think the cost that we talked about.
Sorry, Dave. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dave. So the cost that we talked about a couple of days ago had made those same assumptions. I think your suggestion about how we sort of assess that was broadly in line with what we had pitched, but it was probably just a tighter or a better, perhaps, definition. So we haven't changed the amount. We thought that was probably the right amount to give effect to what we were trying to achieve, which I think is in line with what you have asked for.
Thanks. Okay. That'll do for now, Paula.
Thank you. Councillor Naidu-Rove?
No questions. Thank you.
Councillor O'Leary? Councillor O'Leary?
Sorry, I was just shaking my head. No questions.
Oh, sorry, couldn't see you on the screen there. Councillor Pascoe?
Yes, I've asked. I just think what seems to me to be missing from the report is perhaps an update on how we're tracking for the 9 months to the end of March in terms of our balancing the books, and not having to put alongside these new costs that we're likely to approve today, what impact it's going to have on our year ending 30 June figures. I have asked Tracy if she was able to do that, because every report that we typically get for council, we do get the impact of the additional spend on our finances for the current year, as well as the effect on debt. So I'm just a little bit, and I appreciate the pressure under which this report was put together, but I would really like to see that information. So I guess I'm not going to get an answer to that question, or perhaps if Sean could indicate to me perhaps why that information isn't there and how difficult it might be to get.
Yeah, I mean, the information's simply not there because of timing. Tracy Musty is on the call. She might be able to give you a sort of a verbal response in terms of the impact. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying, but this it's not working very well for me today.
Okay. You can't even give us an estimate as to what the balancing the books.
Oh no, sorry, I can. So our debt
deficit
to revenue
might be.
ratio will only be is still at 140%.
That's after the expenditure that we're approving today.
Is she gone?
Hello?
Anybody can answer that question? No.
Yeah, the answer is yes, it's after these adjustments.
After the adjustment.
Bearing in mind, though, the team is still working through the full ramifications of the debt to revenue ratio in the context of revenue reductions, but even after that, it will still be well within our limits.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just important that we're actually monitoring what changes are happening. So when Richard, do you think we might have that as a perhaps an addendum to this report?
It won't be till next week.
The other question I've got is in the discussion that we had yesterday, we talked particularly on 2B, staff recommendation 2B, that we would approve up to, and we talked about the $1 million or the $500,000. And I just wondered from a comms point of view, whether all of the approvals for these amounts that are in here, given that they are estimates, should all be based on up to, rather than a specific amount. And I just asked Sean if there's a reason why we haven't got that included in the recommendation at this point, and if it would be advisable to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably has the same effect. I don't think it's an issue either way. There would be no issue with saying up to. Governance may have a view on the normal protocol for approving sums of money. I think our convention is to specify an amount rather than to say up to, but Becca might like to jump in.
So councillors, just to helps you, there has just been emailed from Tracy, because she's just not getting her sound working today. In Outlook, you will find the financial graphs, if that's of any assistance to you, Rob.
Oh, okay. Well, hang on. I've got it now. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll have a look at that because I know others will have questions. And the very last question is just a very quick one. On in paragraph 30, you've got that the total cost to deliver phase 1 is 3.39 million, and then the total in the table is 3.4 million. Is that just a typing error? Sean?
Who's that? Sean or Tracy or someone?
Sorry. Yeah, the 3.39 is a mistake. Sorry, Councillor Rob.
So it should be 3.43.
Yes, the number that is in it should be 343.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Paula. First question is to, I think Helen's, if she's still here, just in regards to coming back to us with the criteria for the funding for community service providers. I was just wondering how will that affect the timeliness of our assistance, given that some of the stuff is quite urgent?
So I don't have the date for the next meeting in front of me. Can someone remind me?
Becca's coming to.
Oh, thank you.
We've got an extraordinary council meeting next Thursday. Sorry, what was the question? Was it the next community committee meeting or?
Yeah.
So that would be
the next opportunity to bring the criteria.
No, next council meeting.
So next council meeting will be next week. Following that, it'll be the end of April on the 30th of April.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there is that amount of time to go through, but I think what we would be doing in that time is doing some further scoping and engagement with some of the agencies to make sure that our criteria fits with what we know the need is. So potentially we could start getting applications through pretty much once the once the criteria was approved.
Okay, but I guess I'm still concerned that with this lag, it will have been 1 week since lockdown, and then it will be potentially another 3 days until that money goes in. So in the meantime, is that potentially going to impact on the ability to continue providing these services at the level needed? I mean, looking at just things like food banks being, seeing much higher demand and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think we'll have, personally, I think we can start actually working with agencies around getting those applications prepared. At the moment, the need is quite great, but there is quite a lot of resource sharing. We are getting volunteers in place for various things. Obviously, agencies are doing things, as you've seen, Sarah, around accessing some of the resources that are already existing in the community. I think the week will be okay in terms of people being prepared to put applications in once that criteria is approved. So we can start putting it into effect immediately.
Okay. Thank you. And the other thing was just going to Councillor Ewan's point. If we were to have a two-phased approach, or have some funding reserved pending reporting, what impact could that potentially have? Would it have any negative impact overall, or are there benefits to that other than maybe a bit more transparency reporting back to council?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to answer because we don't know what's going to happen over the next 4 weeks. I do think I do agree with the statements that have been made around there is just as much, potentially more need in terms of building up the resilience, so post that kind of initial demand and response intervention. At the same time, I quite like the idea of ring fencing it in this financial year in case it were required, but actually having a portion of it in reserve would also be fine. Does that answer that, Sarah? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. That's all for me for now.
Thank you, Councillor Van Oosten.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to F on the $280,000. My understanding is that there is a time frame around which you need to make those applications, and for it to be applied to the current year of your application. So I'm wondering, is that correct, Sean? And are we able then to relax that time frame so that people do have the opportunity, and it doesn't become a barrier for them?
I might ask Matt Bell to perhaps answer that. Matthew's our head of rates.
Yes, so that's absolutely the intention. You're right in the respect that for the current rebate applications, there is a time frame. So as of the end of the current financial year, and it's quite sort of specific as far as the information that's required to apply. The intention when we look to create the criteria for this piece will just be make it as flexible and as simple as possible, and try to sort of capture the situation as of right now, as opposed to rely on sort of previous financial information.
And would that also, yeah, thank you, that's really helpful. And would that also apply to the government portion of that? What would be your understanding around that?
So we're keeping a close eye on the comms that come out of from the internal affairs around the government rebate. I haven't seen anything yet which will change that, but I know they're looking at that at the moment.
Thanks.
Okay, I have Deputy Mayor Taylor.
No, thanks, Paula. I'm all good with this now.
Okay, Councillor Bunting. Can't hear
There
you.
we go. Here we go. Sorry about that. No, I'm happy to move the first one though, if it's appropriate time to mention it now. But otherwise, I have no questions. Thank you.
We'll get to moving in a minute. Councillor Wilson.
No questions, Mayor Paula. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, we've had a lot of debate on all of these, and we're going to start moving through the recommendations and going into debate if we need to. But because we have had a pretty full debate, I don't know whether everybody would be happy with the mover and a seconder doing the whole lot, and therefore just avoiding us having to do that. But in your hands, do you prefer that we take item by item?
I think, can I just say that I think it is, I don't care who moves them, whether it's en masse, but you take the vote item by item. That'd be my view, but I'm happy to be overruled. I think that
agree.
Let's do that then. So councillors, looking at the recommendations on page 19 of the report, the council to A and B, are they part of the same? No, 2A moves that approves the 200 of operating funding for the emergency response initiative as part of phase 1 of the response package. I'll move. Have I a seconder? Councillor Bunting. Any debate? If you want to just wave your hand if you've got something you want to say on that item. No, not them. Hang on, I'm just looking at, no. It appears no one wants to speak on that one. So I'll do all in favour, please raise your hands, because I'll call them. So I have myself, I have Councillor Bunting, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Pascoe, Councillor Van Oosten, Councillor Forsyth. I have Councillor McPherson, Councillor Naidu-Rove, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Deputy Mayor Taylor, Councillor O'Leary, Councillor Hamilton, and Councillor Wilson. That's it.
Anyone against?
Anyone against? No. Carried. We'll move to B now. That one I have been asked if Councillor Bunting could move it a while ago, so I'm going to allow for that, and Councillor Wilson second.
Your Worship, just on that, no, I've got an amendment. Mine would be for the 500,000, and that we keep the other 500 in reserve.
I'll second that.
Mayor Southgate, I'll support Councillor Bunting.
Absolutely, thank you. So moved, Councillor
Seconded. Support it.
And the amendment, which is 500,000 and 500,000 in reserve, is moved by Councillor Wilson and Councillor Margaret. Right, Becca? Becca, is that fine?
Yep, so the motion is the staff recommendation. The amendment is Councillor Wilson, Councillor Forsyth, 500,000 with another 500,000 in reserve.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Councillor Wilson as the mover of the amendment, and then I'm going to allow Councillor Bunting as the movement of the motion to speak to it, and then in debate, and we'll take others in debate to follow. Councillor Wilson.
The mover of the motion should go first.
Councillor Bunting needs to speak first as mover of the motion.
Okay.
Fine, thank you. Councillor Bunting.
Okay, thank you. Look, I think I'm more than comfortable to move this, and I'm not going to die in a ditch if Ewan's one wins it. But just interesting to note, there's 85 more cases today. Just to try and keep it in perspective, the seriousness of what we're dealing with. First of all, let me say that I'm really happy with either contribution, but having seen the need, the strain, and the desperation already within our community groups, I'm imploring this group to be as kind as we possibly can. This is an emergency relief package, and this is an emergency. Now, at this point in time, we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what are we here for? I'm firmly of the opinion that we're here for the well-being of the Hamilton community. Now, what that looks like can be different things to different people, but for us to be a safe and healthy community, that comes first. Now, I'm really looking forward to hearing other people's speeches here, because it's in pressure times that our true values shine through. I'm supporting up to $1 million because, but I'm hoping it won't be needed. I think we all hope it won't be needed. Why are we putting $1 million in here when Trust Waikato and Well Trust are already doing the same, and isn't that their core business? Yes, it is. But ours is the well-being of Hamiltonians. And as you can see in the report too, the Well Networks area is wider than ours, and they need to reach high need areas in Huntly, Ngaruawahia, Raglan, etc. Trust Waikato even further. Our portion of the fund is reflective of our concentrated population. So this is going to be available to community organisations that are already in existence, not to individuals, not like the more free-for-all stuff that's happening with some of the government stuff. But again, I ask, what kind of council do we want to be? What are our values that we're going to lead with? I like the way this is going to be reported back to council at this point, because it needs to be closely and strictly monitored. It will be a terrible thing for this to be abused. It must be approached sensibly. But let's put this into perspective. 500K, twice that, 3 times that, 4 times that. We all wish we didn't need to spend any of it, whether it's a 500K limit now or $1 million later. We're all of the same mind. Ratepayers are a massively important sector of the community, and I'm going to be really supportive of rates relief as we get to that. And that's also a matter we can deal with in the annual and the long-term plans. We are supportive of business, and I'll be very, I'm looking forward to supporting that initiative as we get further down the track too. Look, no one can accuse us of not being a business-friendly council. We're doing a lot of stuff for business at the moment, and we will be doing more later. It's not reckless. It is an emergency. Not to diminish it, but to put it in perspective, we spend more money on, oh God, have I lost you all? Oh no, there we go. Boy, what happened there?
No, we were just trialing out a timer. You've got 3 seconds.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll can you guys listen really fast to this last couple of sentences there? Look, not
ignore the time. Ignore the
perspective, we put more money into infrastructure initiatives. Mayor Paula, as head of community, scrambled for more funding at every opportunity last term as head of the community committee, and I'm feeling her pain right now. So I'm urging this council finally to do as much as humanly possible and responsibly possible for our community, because our community is on its knees at the moment. Everyone around this table is compassionate. Let's just see how compassionate we really are. So finally, our community needs us. Are we going to help them?
Thank you. Just councillors, we are going to a 3-minute timer. Obviously, because we're on technology, I am a bit lenient, but we're not all having a 5-minute debate on every last one of these items, or we'll never get away and never make a decision. And don't shake your head, Martin. It will apply to you as it applies to everyone else. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, look, thank you, Mayor Paul, for the opportunity to speak. I think in this particular case, I don't feel that I'm at a disagreement with anybody on this issue. And in fact, I'm agreeing with a lot of what Mark has articulated. I certainly am not taking offense, because I don't think he meant it that by only supporting an initial 500 and keeping 500 in reserve, that doesn't mean we're not treating this as an emergency, or that we don't have true community values, because I'm sure he doesn't mean that. What I'm saying is I am prepared, if necessary, to go to $1 million. What I'm simply trying to do is put in place a process that says, let's immediately spend the 500,000, which is a copious amount of money. Let's see how that is managed. Let's see what incredible improvements we can make with that, that's available immediately. And then let's have a mechanism that says, if we use that, and in fact, there are, and we get a clear explanation of how we've used it, how we've improved the outcomes in the community, and that there is a clear plan on how we would spend the next $500,000, that we do just that. It puts in just a process of good governance, that there is a check and a balance, that there is a momentary take a breath, have a look. And Mark, the reason we need to do this is we don't know the depth or how of this emergency. So I'm agreeing it's an emergency. I'm agreeing that our people are under stress. And what I'm simply saying is it may get worse. And what we know tomorrow will be different to what we'll know the next day. And we are meeting nearly daily, well, we are meeting Monday through Friday informally. We can call a meeting of this council very efficiently within 24 hours to be able to respond if we need to spend the second half. I just want to send a signal to the community. We aren't just throwing a huge amount of money in a pot. We are making a meaningful decision, enabling the community to come back and use the second half when necessary. So I think we're all in agreement. We're all desperately trying to respond in the face of what is an unprecedented occurrence. I'm simply saying, let's do that in a timely, planned mechanism. And our optics today could change tomorrow. And by allocating the full amount of our firepower now, we're not holding anything back in reserve. And I encourage people to look at that two-step process because I think that's a better use of our resources. But the good news here is it looks like everybody's agreeing that if we have to, we'll spend $1 million, and potentially we would spend more if the demands require it. I'm just asking for a more financially prudent two-step process. Thank you.
Right, going down the list, Councillor Forsyth.
Thank you. Look, not too much more to add. I'm not going to talk for the sake of talking. I think our previous speakers have basically covered everything. We are in uncharted territory, and I think that the most prudent form of leadership is just to be mindful and just not throw everything that we've got all in the first half of the trip. Let's manage our resources prudently, because if this does turn worse, we certainly need to be able to reach into even greater resources. And I think it's wise and it's timely and it's the right thing to do, just to put what we need to be putting forward immediately. But then after the scramble and after all of that first reaction has taken place, we can sit back and be more responsive and have a clearer look at what our needs are and how much we need to be supporting those next part of the journey, steps in the journey. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Southgate. You can cross me off the lists for debating on all the other items. I'm not interested in taking up all of that valuable time. I only want to speak to this item. When we talked about this the other day, I said we should be going hard or going home, quite frankly, and it was me that proposed that staff put the $1 million up for an option. And I want to thank the colleagues in advance who will support that. The only other thing that I want to say at this time is that I think it's important the public hear that this is only phase one of your city's response and relief package. And I am prepared to go hard or go home, and I'm here for the people. I'm not here to politicise. I'm not here to make grand statements or anything else. We're all in this together. So thank you, Ms. Southgate. And yeah, I don't need to debate on any other issues today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. Look, I support Bunty and Angela, and thank Angela for bringing this up the other day. What 500,000 was a nominal amount to get things started. I think we're all starting to realise it's a bigger problem we had expected. Bunty was right to talk about the figures that we've got today. Also look at the international figures. China, which we thought was a terrible example of this, has no longer got the most cases as of today of this damn virus. And we are not immune in this area, and we're not immune in the Waikato. Proportionally, the Waikato has got more cases than anywhere else. Look at the figures today and think about that. I think the need is going to be greater than 1 million, actually. I think we're going to need 1 million up front and then to look at what we need to add after that, unfortunately. It's not a question of whether we're being financially or should be financially prudent or not. We always should be. But the bigger question right now is, are we going to be socially prudent? When I look at the amount of money that's in this package for business support, I think that's an appropriate amount, but it's actually, when you look at the business-oriented ones, it's still twice as much as we're suggesting for community support in an immediate sense. I think that will even out, but I don't think we're being extravagant here. Now, I'm not prepared to put a $500,000 threshold on this now and say you have to prove your need when we're not really doing that in other areas. It always interests me on this council when we pay more attention to giving a bit more money in the community sphere as we do in the business sphere. Helen, the staff member, Helen Paki, said that it's a good idea to have your maximum availability that you can talk about in this financial year up front, so you can use it if you need it. And then if there's money left over, by all means, spread that longer term. I think we're going to need, though, a different conversation, an extra conversation about that longer term. So we need that money in the kitty now, so we signal how we're going to, and how much we're going to be able to help the community in the next 3 months.
Thank you. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, I'm going to support 500 at this stage for the same reasons as Councillor Wilson mentioned. No one's suggesting it's only going to be 500. All we're suggesting is put in 500, do some assessment, and then go from there. $1 million is a lot of money to just plonk in somewhere with no measurables whatsoever, just as an estimate. And so I support, and I'm also guided by the fact that there are other organisations involved in this as well. We're working together. I think that allows us to be slightly more conservative. The other point I would like to make is that this virus affects everybody across the board. There's been a lot of attention in recent days about the impact of the virus on the vulnerable members of our society. I support that concern, but I would also emphasise that with the restrictions we've had and the lockdown that we're now in, it's affecting everyone. Unemployed people, workers, low wage, high wage, small business owners, big business owners, renters and homeowners and landlords. And we're going to be called upon, I think, for a lot more money across that board. So all I'm suggesting is we just be a little bit careful as we dole it out, that's all. So I'll support 500.
Thank you. Councillor Naidu-Rofe.
Thank you. I will be supporting Councillor Mark along with the others. I think it's important that we remember we're in an emergency and that this is necessary, and it will get much, much worse. This is not throwing away ratepayer money. In fact, the enormity of need in our communities should not be underestimated. 500,000 will be a drop in the ocean. If we're going by what is going on overseas and what's heading our way, looking at the trend that New Zealand is following, things are going to get a lot worse. We should trust staff to develop the criteria for the maximum, to achieve the maximum community impact. I think it's the humane thing to do. I think it's just the right thing to do. We need urgency and we need maximum impact. So let's start with $1 million. We're going to be asked to put in a lot more, but $1 million is a good starting point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pascoe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, I'm supporting Councillor Ewan and the Deputy Mayor on the 500,000 as an initial amount. I don't doubt that we will need more, but let's start off, given that it is very much early days. Some interesting information from Infometrics this morning is that for the Waikato region, 26% of those in the workforce are still working, either at home or elsewhere, and that around New Zealand, apart from Canterbury, we have the greatest percentage of labour force involved in the food industry, and it's around 53% of our workforce are engaged either in essential services, but including food production, delivery and retail, which means that if the lockdown that we've got now in a month's time comes off and it's been successful, this region will get back into gear fairly quickly. So my view is the gun is loaded, the resources are available, but let's be ready to fire that gun when it's needed. Given that we are meeting almost on a daily basis, we've had 2 council meetings this week, I'm sure that we can fire back in to the needs as and when they arise, and we can do that fairly quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. I think first I just want to acknowledge all of the community groups who have already banded together to really respond to this in a coordinated way. I've seen a lot of the work that the groups that provide food to the community through meal deliveries or Kaivolution, through the Sallies, and all sorts, the work that they've done to work in a really collaborative way. And all the support that we've actually gotten from the community around this, restaurants and chefs offering food that they haven't been able to use or offering their time or kitchens. So people really are pulling together, and I think this is our opportunity to ensure that we aren't having people falling through the cracks at a time like this. We do have more vulnerable people in our community who, whether it's due to disabilities or lacking shelter or really lacking the funds to be able to buy food, this is a time of crisis where really it's people's fundamental welfare which is at risk. So I do think that a significant response from council is needed. And so I have given this a lot of thought, but I will be supporting the 1 million at this stage, acknowledging that these community groups will potentially continue to face greater challenges over the next year or 2 years or more in terms of funding and continuing to provide their services.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. I think everyone's on the same page here. Really, the debate is just around process here and what mechanism we use. In 4 weeks' time, we may need to go beyond 1 million. We may need to go beyond 2 million. We just don't know. And I'd be open to that. But this is just really around how we as council manage it and steward the resource that we've been given. I'm not quite sure why Councillor Dave brought up the business community quantums, because they're only a small part of this whole thing. And yet the businesses are doing the work of the central government by administering the employee subsidy. And if the businesses fall over, then those employees are going to be falling out into the streets and on the benefit. So I don't think that was a necessary reference. I know because we've got over 12 staff that we've got to administer that process with. I understand the need of the community. I'm on the night shelter. Our shelters are full. And I want to acknowledge the works of volunteering Waikato who were working through contracts with to help us do night shift for staff. And the night shift has already been a successful recipient of some funding from that emergency fund. However, my job here is also as a steward of council, and I acknowledge what Mark is saying, and Kesh and Sarah. We might need to go well beyond this amount of funding, but we're day 2 of quarantine. We've got potentially 28 or 40, 50 days to go. So let's just take a measured response. Let's assess. It might be in 2 weeks' time we need to completely change the quantum altogether. It might be we need to redirect or steer it. But let's just take a breath. We're in this for the long haul.
Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you. I'll try and be as brief as I can because I realise this is not time for eloquent speeches. Having said that, in no way do I intend to show any political partisanship. One is reminded of just very recently a previous government removed the well-beings from local government. This government has put them back, and if ever there was a case for the well-beings to be an integral part of local government, this is it, and one would hope that any future government would never, ever quibble with that. Having said that, I just want to pay respect and admiration for the public submission we received from the various groups that we received earlier on, and to stress that this is all about an integrated partnership, with our community sector, our business sector, central government, regional government, the HB. So we're just but one of the key players, and what should our sort of initial contribution be? And I did like the reference before about people who are chefs and cooks, the wonderful community people who are doing so much out there. I'm not going to die on the ditch on whether you advance 1 million now and 500,000, etc. Having said that, I will be going at this point for the original movers, the Bunty motion. In that, I would expect that we will be receiving very regular reports on the monitoring of how that funding is being allocated. And obviously the assumption very clearly is it's not allocated unless it's absolutely needed. It doesn't just say, oh, we've got 1 million, here it is. There's a whole lot of criteria, and that gets transferred. I strongly suspect that we will need the 1 million, and I'll be supporting the original motion, but respecting the reasoning behind the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Van Oosten.
Thanks. I'll be really brief. Look, you've all touched on my sentiments. We're entering the unknown, and that means that this gives us a chance as a council to really stand up and to show the public what this new council has in its heart, and how the actions that we take today can support our communities into the future. I am in support of the original motion. I think that $1 million may well be short of what the total quantum will be, but it sends a really clear signal that we have the well-being of Hamiltonians at our heart, and that's a really good signal to be sending. I also would like to be able to enable our staff to be able to make this a really easy process for people to be able to have access to as well. I think that that's really important, that it's not over prescriptive. I really like the idea of the opportunity to hear the success stories on a regular basis from where the grant money has gone to. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just briefly speak to this as well. I'm speaking in support of the motion. When we set out on having these discussions about an emergency set of relief a relief package for the community last week, we talked about targeting those most affected. And I think it's clear that while businesses are highly affected by this. And we acknowledge that businesses provide work for people, which provides income to families, and we must support those. Equally, I think we have an obligation to the wider community who are very much hurting at this time. We must support our community because we need to stand alongside those other major community funders and philanthropists and join together and coordinate a response that is really targeted and touches those people who need it the most. And that's why I'm speaking in support of the motion. Right of reply, Councillor Bunting.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. And look, I thank everybody for their compassion. I think we're all along the same lines. We all are under no misconception of the seriousness and the likelihood that we are going to be spending it. I would stress that this is up to $1 million, and there are checks and balances every step of the way. So I just would question the necessity to put one of our own barriers in there as well halfway through. We are going to be in control of this. There's going to be regular reporting as it comes through. And you're right, Ewan, I certainly wasn't questioning anybody's intention or saying, gosh, I'm more compassionate than you at all. I tell you what, I have been remiss in not giving credit to Councillor O'Leary as well, because it was her that smashed through the barrier in that last meeting and said, this should be $1 million. And my jaw dropped, and I thought, you're absolutely right. And it's really interesting how the dialogue has changed in this very short time, and now we're all saying it could be more than $1 million. This is how serious this thing is getting. But I think it's not so much that it's $1 million, it's that we're meeting where Well Trust and where Trust Waikato are going, and we're saying, look, we are really serious about helping our community. And so, yeah, I'll be grateful for your support for this motion.
Thank you. We put the amendment first. So it's been moved and it's been seconded. All in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand and keep it there while I call the names. The amendment. I have Margaret. I have Jeff. I have Rob. I have Ryan, and I have Ewan. Do I have anyone else? I've missed anyone else? No, that's it. All those against, raise your hands. I have myself, I have Mark Bunting, I have Martin, I have Maxine, I have Dave, I have Kesh, I have Sarah, and I have Angela.
The amendment is lost. 5 for, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against.
Thank you. So now we go to the substantive motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, I have myself, I have Mark Bunting, I have Martin, I have Maxine, Margaret, Dave, Kesh, Jeff, Sarah, Ewan, Rob, Angela, and Ryan.
Can I just confirm, is anyone against that motion?
Anyone against, put your hand up. And there are no hands up.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Councillors, I know we're on screen, not in a room, but I am going to take a 5-minute adjournment. We've been sitting for 2 hours, and a number of us might just need to stretch. So we'll be
Here's the coffee machine.
Back at the screen about
Here's the coffee machine.
about 3:10, please. Thank you.
Hey, staff, if you're not partaking in the debate, it might make it easier for the councillors if you also turn your video off as well, and it'll only be the councillors. So when Paul is counting the hands, it's not distracting. Just an observation.
Bunty and Ewan. I have some nuts here for you if you'd like them.
Oh, mate,
jealous.
I was just thinking about salted peanuts. Hold on, I'll just put them out again. I'll put my hand through and yeah, thanks, mate. Perfect.
Yeah, Max.
Cool. I've been nibbling on crackers for a bit anyway to sustain me.
I've been naughty. I had a tiny little piece of chocolate. I am running out of, I'm so desperate for tomorrow. So when I'm allowed out,
Oh, don't do it.
What's the first
You
thing
and
you'll
I
do, Ewan?
You and I heard there was
Superman.
I heard there was someone who's been infected arranging to just brush past your doorway to keep you in for another 2 weeks.
Oh,
mate.
Oh, you're such a comrade, Mac. You're such a loving person.
I reckon.
You'll have to set up an advisory for us all because we're only up to day 2, and you're
Are we
already
online?
really
I
there.
just caution, guys, so you might, all this conversation might still be live streamed.
It is still live streamed at this time. I've just checked.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Angela.
Are we back now? Yep.
I don't think
Just
there's
listening,
anything.
the Prime Minister was doing an update.
Oh, what's the story? It's 85 more, isn't it?
Yeah. Just a general update, I think. Nothing new.
We should crack on then, I think. So we are now meeting.
I've got to say, that's the first time I've actually ever debated in slippers. But yeah.
Okay, so now we're going on to C, which approves the early payment of suppliers. I'll move. Have a second, Councillor O'Leary.
I'll second.
Oh, done. Any questions on this? There shouldn't be. We had a good debate the other day. Any debate? If you raise your little hand, I might see. No debate. Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So I've got myself, Mark, Margaret, David, Jeff, Ewan, Maxine, Sarah, Angela, Rob, and Martin. I haven't got Kesh or Ryan in the room, so that's the vote. Those against, put your hand up. Don't see any. Anybody missed? No. That's it, Becca.
So can I just confirm that councillors Naidu, Ralph and councillors Hamilton are not in the room currently?
They're not in the room.
Okay. The motion is carried unanimously.
That brings us on to D, which is approves the 460,000 of operating funding consent relief and refunds as part of the phase 1. Somebody, Councillor Mac will move. Seconder.
Second.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Who was that? Councillor.
Second.
Who's moving?
I'll move.
I'll move. Councillor Margaret will second. Any questions for discussion? Shouldn't be much. Any debate? No. Okay. In that case, all in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. So I have myself, Mark, Margaret, Dave, Jeff, Ewan, Maxine, Angela, Rob, Martin and Sarah. And we still don't have Cash or Ryan in the room. All those opposed, raise your hand. Being none.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay. Number E, which is the 525,000 of operating funding for rent relief initiative as passed one.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Oh, Councillor Lee had a hand up first. Councillor Wilson, you can second it. Any questions? No. Any comments? No. We'll put it to the floor. All in favour, please raise your hand. I have myself, I have Mark, I have Margaret, I have Dave, I have Jeff, I have Ewan, I have Maxine, I have Angela, I have Rob, I have Martin, and I have Sarah. Is there anyone against? No, and we still don't have Cash or Ryan in the room.
The motion is carried unanimously.
I'll move F.
Yeah, second.
Moved Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Thompson. That's to approve a 280,000 of operating funds for rates relief initiative as part of phase 1. And as it notes, changes for approval at the next available council meeting. Are there any questions on that one? No. Is there anybody who would like to debate?
Dave here. Yeah, I would like to just say a little bit.
Okay.
Thanks. Look, this is one of the most targeted direct forms of help we can give to not to everyone in a accommodation situation, obviously not to renters, but for that large chunk of our residents who are ratepayers. This is a potential seriously effective piece of help that's targeted to those who need it the most, probably more targeted than in a way than any of the other things we've done, and that we can influence most directly as a council. So this is only phase 1. I think this is where we can help most over the short and medium term. So I'm looking forward to that council report coming in another month on some more details of the criteria. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to comment on this one? Councillor Gallagher.
Apologies. Obviously, our comms team, I'm stating the obvious, but I'm just emphasising what they will be doing is obviously redoubling efforts and leaving no stone unturned to explain this particular package and its availability, and ensuring that our communication channels are as good as they can possibly be, so that the message has got out there that this is a particular fund which, as Councillor McPherson said, is absolutely targeted, but it's so important that the people it is targeted to are aware of it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a comment on this one. I'm really sorry, Kit, do you want to comment, Maxine?
Yeah, just are you going to just do a wrap up on that point, or?
No, I'm taking debate on this one. So anything relevant to this one, say it now would be good.
Yeah, thank you. I also wanted to highlight that this is a really critical thing that I'll be looking at in the short to medium term. I agree with Councillor Dave and McPherson, Gallagher, that this is critical for our lowest and most vulnerable residents who are ratepayers, and that this is a critical way for them to be able to get some relief. There's the potential that 30% of our current workforce will be without jobs, not necessarily in the most immediate future, but potentially in the next before the end of the year anyway. So having this as a way to be able to give them some relief is really important for us to consider. I am concerned about the $280,000 and would want to be kept really well briefed on the progress of it and of the applications that are coming through, not necessarily the minute detail, but certainly the overview of it, with the view to looking at, if we need to, tweaking some of the criteria and policy that sits around it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I moved this, and purely I want to add to the narrative. This quantum is the thin edge of the wedge. I think this is the one area, and there may be others, where taking on board with some of the things the Deputy Mayor has said, where there are ratepayers who are going to be hurting. that we will be rediscussing this quantum. I do think it's the appropriate mechanism and process for relief. This is the first shot out of the cannon, but I too will be looking forward to getting the next report back. And I think the quantum will grow exponentially because I think there will be a period of pain, and this may be the best mechanism to target those most affected, most disadvantaged during now and the ongoing crisis. So I guess I'm just supporting my colleagues, saying looking forward to seeing the next iteration when it comes to us.
Thank you. Councillor Margaret. Margaret.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you. I'm really supportive of this, all three rates relief and rates rebate proposals. Even before the coronavirus, I was really supportive of growing this fund and really making the opportunity easier and more accessible for our ratepayers to access these funds, not keep them in the too hard basket or quite restrictive. So when we get through this, I'm really hoping that this fund and the ability to access these funds is going to remain a much easier and a much bigger pool, because even pre-COVID-19 times, my assessment was that there were a lot of people that were really struggling with rates, and it's going to be obviously in these times even more so. So I'm fully supportive of these measures.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'd just like to add something.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was waving my hand, but
sorry, you might have been on the other
side. Been waving for a while. No, it's fine. Thank you. So I support this initiative. I think Councillor Wilson put it well, that it's a really appropriate measure in terms of rates and is a really targeted measure, which I think is a lot more helpful compared to taking a broad brush approach. And it will help those people who are homeowners. I would like to just, I guess, acknowledge that what COVID-19 has done is reveal and potentially exacerbate some of our inequalities that we have in New Zealand, particularly around the tension between home ownership and renting. So it's a little frustrating that, you know, there's not a lot that we can potentially do around that in terms of helping people who are paying their rates through their rent. But I do see this still as something that's within council's control to do, and a way that we can very tangibly help people, and like I said, in a targeted way. Also a little concerned that the quantum is not going to be enough, given that we're potentially looking at some pretty high levels of unemployment. It's hard to really predict what those might be, but we're looking at something which probably we haven't seen for a very long time as a society. So thanks.
Thank you. I see you, Councillor Bunting.
Oh, is it me?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, look, heartily in agreement. And I think that's a matter of timing. I'm looking forward to discussing, what we do with the rates increases, etc., in a later meeting. But to me, the timing was getting that community needs sorted out first of all, and then entering positively into this kind of debate in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a few comments myself, if I may. Look, I'm very, very pleased with this first tranche of support mechanisms for the community, and we know there is more to come. And we know we've got to have more discussion yet around rates, potential rates adjustments, and other mechanisms to target those most in need. We've all heard the cries of the community to reduce our rates, and then some will go as far as saying we should freeze the rates. But we've got to be really careful not to make on the hoof decisions. We've got to really understand the full impacts on the community in the short term and the long term. And I think what we've done today is tackle the short term very well. we'll have to think longer term whether we need to further refine how we look at rates. And that I understand we're going to start having that conversation as early as next week. And certainly we've got an opportunity in the annual plan to consult with the wider public about how they feel rates should be managed. But we've also got to be mindful of wherever we provide relief, that it gives the most support where it is most needed. So at the end of the day, that every dollar we put back into the community to help them through this virus gets spent in the very best way. So that's how I feel about it. I look forward to the further discussions that we're going to have. But I congratulate Council on I congratulate Council on finding 7 smart ways to improve support the community immediately. Anyone else would like to talk? No, Councillor Deputy Mayor Taylor. Yep.
We're only up to F, aren't we?
Pardon?
Are
Yes,
we're only up to F?
Yes, we're up to F, and I'm up to Councillor Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Okay, thank you.
I was waiting till we got till the end, but I might as well chip in now just very quickly. Yeah, look, I'm very supportive of this package, which in tandem with the government assistance, I think will help provide some relief for people and businesses blighted by COVID-19. It's obviously just a starting point, and there's a number of initiatives to come in the future, more related to providing economic stimulus. I want to particularly thank the staff who've worked on this amid all sorts of pressures to come up with this work behind this package today. Not only having to deal with pretty brutal deadlines, but all the personal and family pressures that all of us are feeling. So thanks to your team, Richard. Yeah, very supportive of all of this. And of course, a significant part of our decision making will also be whether we make any changes to our proposed 3.8% rate rise in the wake of this massive event, and Mayor Southgate has touched on that. That's a discussion I understand is coming, and I look forward to hearing the other views around the table. But I'm very pleased to support this package today. I look forward to it being rolled out quickly and us trying to provide some surety for the very many anxious and stressed people in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. You've said a lot of things I might have said at the wrap up, but here we are. We're on F.
Wrap up, sorry, wrapped up.
And we're on F. I'm going to put it to the floor. All in favour, please raise your hands. So I have myself, I have Mark, and I don't see Margaret. I have thank you. Myself, Mark, Margaret, Dave, Jeff, Ewan, Angela, Rob, Martin, Maxine, Kesh, and Ryan, and Sarah. That's all of us. There is no one voting against. Double check. No, that's it, Becca.
Sorry, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. That brings us on to G.
I'll move it. Do you happy to move it?
Pardon?
I'll move it. Let's get it moving.
Councillor Wilson, second. Are there any questions? We had a big debate about this earlier. No. Any debate on this? No. I'll put it to the vote. Please raise your hands. All in favour? I have myself, I have Mark, I have Margaret, I have Dave, I have Jeff, I have Ewan, I have Angela. Oh, that's very clever. I have Rob. I have Martin, I have Maxine, who can also do that. I have Kesh, I have Ryan, and I have Sarah. And no one voting against. That's genetic, apparently. I can't do it. Becca, that's it.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay. Now we go to the very last one. H. I'll move.
I'll second.
Councillor Wilson will second. No debate or questions. Will
Yes,
any?
yes.
Oh, hang on.
I would
Question
just
or debate? Question or debate?
debate.
Okay. We're into debate. Put your hand up if you like to debate. Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Chair. Look, this is a sector that I've been involved in for over 40 years. Loyal businesses have their own accountants. lawyers and banks who can and do support them in times of economic need. While I support this operating fund, I would like and I would expect to see reports on a timely basis from Te Waka and from staff to ensure that the other parties involved in this initiative are contributing in a way that is appropriate given council's contribution. I just kind of feel that there isn't. This to me is kind of like the tip of the iceberg, and I just wonder that it could in fact play itself out, that they may well want to come back and ask for significant amount of money depending on how difficult the next few months become. So I think my support for it is on the basis that we are kept up to speed with exactly what the needs are of the business community and who else is in the pool with us in terms of contributing services and financial resources. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Margaret.
Yeah, look, I'll be brief. The reason I'm happy to support this is I think it's sending a clear message to our partners, to Waka, the Waikato Chamber of Commerce and businesses in Hamilton. We, the City of Hamilton, are going to be with you during this difficult phase that we're in. We're the first taxi off the rank with real cash. I think that's a really strong message to send. I'm comforted that this isn't just for small businesses and medium-sized businesses, but it's also for non-profits. And it's those very non-profit organisations that are in the social sector that are going to be under a huge amount of pressure, not only now in terms of delivering their services, which Mark has worked hard to make sure they're well funded, but I have a real concern 12 months ahead when things, if the business community finds difficulty in them ensuring they've got cash going forward, this would be their opportunity now to get good advice about cash flow management and be able to access the abilities that Te Waka can bring to bear. So that's my comment on that. And since this is the last item, can I just say to our comms people and to the people of Hamilton, look, I think what we've seen today is passing basically an immediate response emergency package of nearly 3.5 million for a small city of Hamilton is tremendous. And although there's been some debate, it's been unanimous. So I think we are sending a clear message as a city. We've got this. We can work with our partners to help us come out of this situation. And so I just also want to thank the staff for their tremendous work. But more importantly, I also want to thank my colleagues, because I think we've all had, we've all worked really hard, and we've all come to agree on nearly all of these issues. So thank you.
Councillor Thompson. No, Councillor Forsyth, apologies.
Thanks. I'd like to echo Councillor Pascoe's contribution. For me, he's hit the nail right on the head. I'm really keen to have reports, frequent reporting, and reporting about the right things that we want to know about, and staff, I would expect them to be asking us the sorts of information that we want to hear back. We're not only the first cab off the rank, we're actually the only cab off the rank at this stage as far as financial contributions go, and I'll be really interested to see who else comes to the taxi stand when the time comes. I'm also looking forward to other businesses stepping up their services in kind, and I see when legal and, well, obviously financial and business, but when those skills and expertise are required by this, by the help that this organisations are going to be offering, then I would expect them to be really coming to the party as well. I did find it interesting when our contributor Mike mentioned that it was the medium to large businesses that really employed experts to offer the financial and legal advice and accounting advice, when really many New Zealand businesses are in the small to medium range. So, I mean, there's a potential for learning there and for some direction given to small to medium businesses about how they potentially can be positioning themselves and looking for looking to support their own businesses in future. In summary, I support the motion and I support the 165,000, but I will be looking forward to regular reporting, the right kind of reporting, and seeing other organisations step on the front foot and be willing, ready and able to offer further financial contributions, not only if, but when required.
Thank you. We're going to go to the vote on this one. We've got
I had debate as well. Well,
oh, sorry.
Yep.
Debate.
Thank you. Largely just some comments around expectations for this. I think accessibility is going to be really important, and also making sure that those who need this service know about it. So it's awesome to hear that charities and non-profit organisations are going to be able to access this, but it's really important they know that it's there and that it's available to them. So I'd like to hear back, how we're going to disseminate that information, say through Community Waikato or other organisations, and also that there are ways for people who have English as a second language to know about this and access it. We have a lot of small business owners who have English as a second language, and this may be something which they can't access without that extra effort towards that. Those are really my main concerns, and otherwise, I would also like to see that other organisations and funders come on board, because I see that, I think Finance Minister Grant Robertson said turning the economy back on is not like switching on a light switch, it's more like turning on an oven, which takes a long time to warm up. And so this may be 3 months for now, but probably the need's going to be there for a lot longer. So I would like to see effort from our organisation and to Waka and others to really get others on board.
Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, obviously I support this, and I certainly acknowledge the previous speakers, particularly Councillor Wilson. I think he summed it all up. I think this leads us to put, and I agree with Councillor Forsyth in that I'll be looking very closely as to who the other partners are, and obviously pick up the points that's just been raised by Councillor Thompson in terms of those small businesses where, for example, English is second language, so where the HMS Trust and other key organisations can play a very critical role. And I'll be very careful. It's going to be easy for other arms of local government, regional council, for example, to make media statements. I want to make sure that we work together collaboratively, because I acknowledge this is focused on Hamilton City, but the Metro Hamilton, the Waikato wide, which I acknowledge Te Waka is doing, but also, again, stress partnership. We're not the only player. The partnership with critical central government agencies is going to be very important, and other major agencies. This does lead us in, and I know there's another discussion in terms of the broader forward-looking economic package in terms of appropriate infrastructure works as we wait and work with central government on some of those projects. And I will just make the point that if people want to know how not to handle a deep dive recession, which hopefully we hope, fingers crossed, will not be too unduly long, then look at some of the silly right-wing governments in the early 1930s and what they did, and of course what we're doing collectively, and this not, across all the political spectrum, I think, is that we are being constructive and interventionist, and we are being absolute partners. I think what I will be looking for as we go on, and we are getting this, is getting those immediate quick time indicators of economic activity, because our role is to do everything we can to as we move through the various phases of this particular episode, is to try and do our bit to engender confidence as well, and dare I say it, appropriate optimism. But I'm strongly going to be supporting this, and I do stress what Councillor Forsyth has said. I'm going to be looking very, very closely at the other partners who come to the table on this one.
Councillor Bunting. You're mute. You're mute.
Sorry, my last part was better than my rest of it. I will be brief, and just in that this is the last chance to debate this part of it publicly, and echoing Councillor Wilson's exaltations there on how this has gone. I think this is a good first step, and I would echo his comments too, in that to the community, and seeing what kind of a council you've got doing this at the moment. There's nothing nicer than winning a motion with the political heavyweights of McPherson and O'Leary behind you, and Southgate as well, and the litmus tests of Councillor Wilson and Taylor were good, because I mean we had a high bar to get across. So look, just throwing out some platitudes to say thank you, Mayor Paula, for how you've led this particular part of the debate, and I think the community has got a pretty good outcome out of this one.
Thank you. Since everyone's in we're only really on H, but since we're in a little bit of wrap up, I will take my opportunity to say a couple of things. Hey everyone, I'm really proud of what we together have pulled together quite quickly on behalf of the community. There's more to come. There's more relief to come. There's more to come for business. There's more to come for the community, and there's more to come for ratepayers. And we'll be having those discussions. We're saying quite clearly today that we will walk alongside you to get through this. And I'm very proud of that as well. And on the note of that, the staff, I know you have been working hours way in excess of what we've been working. You've been working day and night since this pandemic was called to put together your best ideas of how we can pull together to help our community. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. And I hope that post this meeting, you can have a few days rest before we get into tranche 2 conversations, because you richly deserve some time off to spend with your friends and your family and just get a little bit of respite. So thank you very much to the staff. We'll go to H now. Please indicate all those in favour. Hands. Thank you. I have myself, I have Mark, I have Margaret, Dave, Jeff, Ewan, Angela, Rob, Maxine, Ryan, Kesh, Martin, and Sarah. I think it's everyone. No one against? No one against.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thanks again, councillors. Stick around for a bit. We're moving now into public excluded. So I'll let...
sorry, Mayor Southgate, just interrupt. We've got that late item that we just need to deal with before going into public excluded.
Apologies. So we're now into the late item. Who wants to step us through this?
Mayor Paula, it's Chris Allen here. Perhaps I could for that one, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
So sorry for the late item. This is a pretty urgent issue for us to be able to operate efficiently, particularly given the events that have unfolded. The report was a report that was written and due to go to the Finance Committee, which was cancelled. It's a process recommendation. It's not to do with funding. It's about how we engage our professional service consultants for the transport area. The recommendation is to extend an existing panel arrangement we have for transport consultants that are matched to our sort of metro operations and needs. So the panel arrangement allows us to be agile and to negotiate directly within CEO delegations, of course, rather than spend a lot of time going to tender to get consultants on board. to help us with the things that we need to do in transport is really, really important, particularly with what's happening, that we can just pick up the phone to our consultant, help to get us through the next few months. So I'll leave it at that. The recommendation is to extend the existing contract to 30th of June 2021. Happy to answer any questions.
I'll move.
No, oh, sorry, you've been beaten to that. Councillor O'Leary is moving. If you don't mind, you could be the seconder.
Fine.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any questions on this? It's all pretty straightforward. Councillor Pascoe.
Yes, just one quick question, Chris. Is this extending it for 1 year, is it?
It's extending it to 30th of June. We had originally were coming to Finance Committee to extend it to the end of the year, because that would have given us time to put other things in place. But just with the extraordinary events, we think it's prudent to take it to 30th of June 2021.
Okay, so when did it expire, the contract?
The contract expired in January of this year.
Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to the vote. It's been moved, it's been seconded. Please, any debate? No. Move to a show of hands. All in favour? I have myself, I have Mark Bunting, I have Dave, I have Ewan, I have Angela, I have Rob, I have Maxine and Ryan, I have Kish, Martin, Jeff and Sarah, and I don't know where Margaret is. Oh, I have Margaret. Thank you. Anyone against? No.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And now I move that we move into public excluded. Can I have a second, Councillor O'Leary? All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Bunty. We'll just wait till we get confirmation from Becca that we're no longer being live streamed, and then we'll move to the public excluded item.
Amy, could you let me know?